I really want to talk about the removal coalition, how it's coinciding with No Kings 3. Like why, some people might say, well, why is removal so important? Do we even have the votes? But you got some heavy hitters who are speaking for you. And we'll talk about, we'll have no problem talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Folks, you got me in mid conversation with Jessica Denson. She is one of the founders of the Removal Coalition. The Removal Coalition is saying, hey, we're explicit in our mission to constitutionally remove the illegal Trump administration from power now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. This is a man who's a convicted criminal. He's a man who's been held liable for rape against E. Jean Carroll. He's a man who's been held liable for fraud. He's a man who incited a violent insurrection. He's a man who pardoned violent insurrectionists. He's a man whose past year, this is top of the head, Jessica, in his past year has pardoned fraudsters, people who have literally helped him and his corrupt family members make billions of dollars. And I'm sure you saw the House Judiciary Committee today, Representative Raskin, say that this is a man who, according to the evidence they found from the special investigator Jack Smith's report, stole classified documents and potentially bartered, sold, and or threatened our national security. But guess what? He's still in power, Jessica, because he was never held accountable. Before we talked about No Kings 3, and I know you're working with them, talk to us
Talking
about the
about
Removal
Raskin, too.
Coalition. What was
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. I said we can talk about Raskin too.
Good.
Yeah, because I mean, some people. One thing I want to tell you about the Removal Coalition, but one thing people don't realize is some of the people that seem to be your best allies and articulate the crisis the best are the ones that are the impediments to the constitutional way out of this. Believe it or not, we will talk about that.
Well, let's talk about that right now. Why would you say? Because we have Jamie Raskin, a law scholar, used to be a professor, seen as one of the, like you said, the fighters for the rule of law and accountability. How is he and I would say the Democratic leadership an impediment to this?
Well, this gives me a good tee up to what we're doing right now. My
Sure.
activism, I mean, I've been an activist in the court for years. To those of you who've never seen me before, but maybe heard about Trump NDAs, I'm the one that invalidated all those 2016 Trump NDAs in the court. So that's kind of where my activism started. I've been a whistleblower for years. Just this past year, I became an on-the-ground activism when this illegal administration was starting. And I say illegal, why, Waj? Because he's not just all those things that you just ticked through at the top. He's also an adjudicated insurrectionist who was disqualified from the presidency on day one. So one of the primary people, I started my activism trying to get Congress to enforce their authority under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and block this presidency in the first place. That's what should have happened.
Yes.
Jamie Raskin was one of the leading voices internally saying, we can't do this. We'll start a civil war if we, God forbid, raise an objection on January 6, 2025, saying that this man is disqualified, which he in fact is. And so he was very much the gatekeeper and remains the gatekeeper. This then translates into the impeachment conversation as to what articles of impeachment, what impeachment path is deemed acceptable in the Democratic caucus right now in moving forward. He infamously bullied, and I say bullied, the whole Democratic Party really bullied this one member of Congress, a man named Sri Tanadar from Michigan, out of forcing a vote that he had promised to me personally on my show on articles of impeachment over the summer because they don't think the timing is right on this. And we have moved Jamie Raskin. The pressure of our movement and our work in the Removal Coalition, which I, of course, will tell you more about, has pressured these people. So Jamie Raskin went to a nay vote on furthering articles of impeachment over the summer to a yay vote when we had it the second time back in December. But these people have been very, very reluctant to have this conversation because they view everything from a political lens, I think, completely disconnected from reality because the people are desperate for fighters to actually do something. And those people who you think are the best allies, who get on MSN now every night and tell you, diagnose the problem to a T, are actually the ones behind the scenes that are trying to strategically claw back the constitutional approach to this utter sabotage that we see on a daily basis.
Well, I want to bring a receipt because people forget. Remember the first time in the first Trump administration, the first impeachment before the insurrection, it was when we had that perfect phone call with Zelensky. I don't know if you remember this, but behind the scenes, Nancy Pelosi slow walked the impeachment for the very same reasons and
Yes.
said, oh, this will be bad politics. And enough Democrats and they looked at the polls and said, no, 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 we have to, even though we don't have the votes. But if we don't do this, it'll give a green light for Donald Trump to literally strong arm a foreign leader and force a sham investigation to hurt a political opponent for the upcoming election. But folks, I want to remind you that Nancy Pelosi tried to slow walk the impeachment and almost got away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she has said, granted, she's a lame duck right now, she's retiring. She has even said, because so many of them want to punt this conversation till after the midterms, get us in the majority, then we'll pursue it. Nancy Pelosi herself has said, even if the Democrats win back the midterms, she doesn't think it's necessarily something you pursue. I'm like, for God's sakes, what universe are we living in? This is it, folks. We have one constitutional remedy for everything that we're seeing. This man is not, first of all, he's not legally in office, but second of all, he does countless things that we cannot keep track of on a daily basis that subject him to impeachment and removal. This is what our Constitution gave us. If we have a Constitution, if we are enforcing it in any way, shape, or form, we have to take Article 2, Section 4 and start using it against this man. So, yeah, Nancy Pelosi, there are more. There are so many stories like that from both impeachments before, and it is, you're right, Waj, unthinkable.
Well, someone, Teodora, asked, well, she asked right now, how is impeachment going to be useful? Good question.
You have to muscle the vote. You have to keep forcing votes. And this is one thing that's been happening more recently, is that Democrats have been filing articles of impeachment against cabinet members. You've been noticing this,
Yes.
right? They did it against Kristi Noem. They now have multiple articles on file against Pam Bondi. They put them in committee and they let them sit there. And we've been told internally by these members of Congress that they think getting co-sponsors is the same thing as forcing votes. It is absolutely not the same thing as forcing votes. There's something called Rule IX, Rule 9 in the House. It's a special privilege that gives any member of that body, including any member of the minority, whether or not they're in committee or in leadership, to force a vote on articles of impeachment. This is what Al Green has done when he filed his. He's the only one. When he did that, and when anybody does that, they are putting people on the record as to where they stand. I mean, Waj, this should literally.
That's key.
This is key. This is key because it's basically comes down to naming and shaming, right? That is how we got, and I say we because there have been so many of us pushing relentlessly for this in spite of all the naysayers, in spite of all the, tried it 2 times, didn't work, all the we don't have the votes, all that. We've been pushing like hell. We went from this summer, 79 Democrats supporting it, to back in December, 183 if you count the present vote. 77% surge in support for impeachment. That is a massive metric.
Yep.
Imagine now if we were doing that on a regular basis, having those force votes, getting those names, and being able to pressure the holdouts. We'd get all the Democrats, I guarantee you, and then we can move on to the Republicans. And in this landscape that we have, we only need a handful to get it out of the House of Representatives.
But you want to put it on the record. And folks, I want to remind you all, Al Green, with this Democratic leadership, and I blew it on, gets pissed off at me. I don't care. I'm very fair. I have no faith in the Democratic leadership. And I always bring the receipts. This Democrat, you know who they haven't censured so far? They haven't censured Senator Tommy Tuberville, who openly used a Nazi slogan to compare Zoran Mamdani and Muslims to enemies of the gate last week. They haven't censured Randy Fine, who compared Muslims to dogs and said he prefers dogs. They haven't censured Andy Ogles, who is cosplay crusading right now, saying Muslims need to leave. You know who Democrats joined with Republicans to censure? Al Green. Al Green. And we found out that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer behind the scenes tried to kill the Masih Kana vote to go on the record, the War Powers vote, to go on the record, have every elected official go on the record and say whether or not they support the illegal strike on Iran. Well, then Netanyahu and Trump went ahead and just did it. But we're seeing a Democratic leadership that is governed by fear. And you're seeing this type of timidity for the past 10 years, where they play politics, they don't want to lead, they want to play possum. And I remember, yes, they didn't have the votes for the first impeachment. They didn't have votes for the second impeachment. But putting that on the record, just straight, if you're thinking about optics, Jessica, dominated the news, dominated the headlines, tarnished Donald Trump, got evidence out there, News media was talking about it, and more people were aware. And I think it hurt him in the first administration, helped the
100%.
Democrats, and if anything, it will hurt the Republicans who now have historic low favorability. Donald Trump is at 36%. And at the very least, now you have a public record and accounting of another top of my head illegal strikes against innocent Venezuelan fishermen. No one's talking about that. New York Times yesterday just said Pete Hegseth lied about striking a dairy
Of
farm
course he did.
in Ecuador, right? What happened with Venezuela? What's happening with this war in Iran? I mean, there's so much that could expose how corrupt everything is. And I'm wondering, just because you're in this, is the Democratic leadership's failure or timidity to bring about this type of hardball tactics that we know Republicans will do is also a fear that, oh, it might expose us.
Oh, 100. Well, listen, one thing I realized after January 6, 2025, when not a single Democrat raised their hand in objection to this presidency, is that we have been betrayed by the entire elected contingent of people representing this country. Like, I no longer have faith in any of them. I am just going on the premise of these being human beings that are subject to some kind of feeling and awareness of the fact that they are carrying the burden right now for the demise of America. And that is what I am going to constantly remind every one of them of from a human basis. I no longer have faith in any party at all. I have totally,
You become
given up.
radicalized. You sound like all middle-aged aunties I've talked to for the past week have been, you're not middle-aged, but I'm talking about the middle-aged aunties I've talked to for the past week who are literally straight up radicalized by the Epstein class, by the genocide in Gaza and what's happening with the Iran war and the 1%. They're all radicalized.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, it's unthinkable, the situation that we have in this country. But let's just, like, I like to look at a country like South Korea. Look at what South Korea did, for God's sakes. They
Tell them.
had a president who wanted to institute martial law. What does their opposition leader do? Their opposition leader climbs over barricades, live streams his way back into the legislature. Fast forward, what are we, a year or two later, the guy is in prison for life, the president who tried to do
For
this.
life.
For life. For life. We have had this guy unthinkably in our White House. By the way, this time around, aside from Section 3, I do not believe for a second this man legitimately won the election in 2024. That's a whole nother.
Can I ask you why? Okay, real quick, why do you think that? Because that's increasingly now people hush that, but now it's getting a little bit more extreme. What do you think happened?
I have interviewed countless election security experts, the ones who were begging the Harris campaign to do recounts in 2024 before the time expired for that to happen. I actually left my former network, Midas Touch, to be able to platform these ideas because they wouldn't have it on their network. I mean, first of all, we had to identify, first off, the gaslighting that we would be subject to if we dared call this out, and understand what a psyop Donald Trump did in 2024 by claiming election fraud so that nobody could legitimately claim this moving forward, when in fact election hygiene is a fundamental part of any functioning democracy. We were asking for recounts, not asking for people to storm the Capitol, but there were unthinkable statistical anomalies in the vote counting, in the way that the votes came in. The more votes came in, the more that they skewed for Donald Trump in key precincts. The interference from Elon Musk, the fact that Donald Trump's henchmen in 2020 got copies of election software, and that same software and machines were used in 2024 without software updates or any mitigation. Computer security experts were literally screaming from the rooftop about this, both leading up to the 2024 election and in the wake of it. That election was completely unverified.
And remember the thing that always tipped me off, and I don't know, but why I said is I want an investigation, I want an audit. Why not? Donald Trump did a fraud of the 2020 elections, wasted so much money, the one that he lost, by the way. Remember when he thanked Elon Musk publicly at a rally?
For the vote counting computers. Absolutely.
And no one, that's always been a data point stuck in my head. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, what? Why are you thanking Elon Musk in Pennsylvania? What happened in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's insane that we let that go. And I mean, Elon Musk has been implicated for violating election laws in Georgia over these same sorts of techniques. I mean, this is clear election interference. I'm sorry. A guy who couldn't fill in a high school auditorium swept all 7 swing states on election night outside the margin for automatic recount before we all went to sleep. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not stupid. Like, I don't even need a security analysis to tell me that that did not happen. But I have taken the route of interviewing the experts, and one after another has come and said this election has too many questions, absolutely, to say with the surety that Donald Trump won in 2024.
It's one of those things where, at the very least, based on what you said, and based on the track record, and based on what we know, at the very least, we needed an audit. And the fact that the DNC said, "Nah, let it go," because
Mhm.
what infuriates me is, and I was just talking to Danielle about this, and I think it's important that we talk about this. We need fighters, and I think you'll agree with me. And we have, what do you think of Merrick Garland? Because we just heard what the House Democrats happened, and I'm sitting there going, you had Merrick Garland who slow walked it for 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Barely gave Jack Smith enough time. Forget Donald Trump being inside of the jail cell, which is where he should be. Forget him being walked out in bracelets. He never saw the inside of a courtroom, Jessica.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unthinkable. It's absolutely unthinkable. And you think of what the average American is going through right now as not just Donald Trump, but every kleptocrat who has benefited from this presidency, the scale at which they are enriching themselves, while the average American can't pay for gas or groceries, all kinds of things. Let me give you a metric, and then I know we're both short on time, but
No, we'll get you. We're good. Go for it. Go.
I got to tell you what we're doing on Saturday. I want to just this metric. I don't know if you've heard this. We literally, Waj, have 3 times as many people in concentration camps at this moment as there were in Nazi Germany before the start of World War II.
Wow.
I mean, if that doesn't raise your, alarms to the max, I don't know what does. We are at a rapid decline into fascism right now. And I'm going to take this back to what we started with, which is
No, it's
impeachment.
all connected. You are for the removal coalition. What is that, and how is that intersecting with the No Kings rally?
So the removal coalition I formed over the summer, because like I said, I've been on the streets protesting since January of last year. I saw as these protests picked up that they were lacking teeth. They were lacking a demand. And it was great to see all of the people out exercising their First Amendment rights, community building, all of that. But there was not a demand. There was not a demand like you see from other countries, like, countries that really don't have time and understand, just don't have the comfort level that so many Americans have in making demands to their government. No, so I said, you know what, I'm going to form this coalition, both to uplift groups that are wanting to make this, but maybe don't feel like they have the amplification or the permission or whatever, and to host our own protests that explicitly do this. And so we've been doing that since the summer. We hosted the largest ever in-person lobby for impeachment back in September. We had tens of thousands on the Lincoln Memorial in November for Remove the Regime, which is where Representative Green promised to file those second articles of impeachment and force a vote. No Kings 3 was coming up. I honestly, Waj, could not believe that they announced this third date without a demand. I couldn't believe it. And those of us who have been in this protest space and know how much blood, sweat, and tears goes into planning a protest and going through all these motions, it needs to have an effect, right? I told you about that 77% metric that we got from our movement. Imagine if the whole country were doing that, making that same singular, uncompromising demand for something, rather than just having the largest protest in American history that is essentially just a massive festival that, as somebody very aptly said, doesn't challenge the kings, but just entertains them. And so we came in at the Removal Coalition and we said, listen, give teeth to your No Kings rallies. If you're an organizer, if you're attending, make that demand loud and clear. Impeach, convict, remove the regime. We can do this. If we adequately put our pressure and our attention and all of our leverage, use it with these members of Congress, we will accomplish something. And so we're doing that nationwide. There was not a rally. There is a No Kings rally in Anacostia in Washington, D.C. that's focused on Stephen Miller. There was not something on the National Mall or near Congress, anywhere in that region, focused on removal at all. And we felt that it was very essential to fill that void. And so we are having another event on March 28th, this Saturday, on the National Mall, first block west of Congress, explicitly demanding impeachment, conviction, and removal. We're going to have a convergence of people from the Anacostia rally, from Virginia, all bringing that unmistakable historical landmark pressure on Congress. And I honestly, expect results. If we get the showing and the attention that we should for this, I expect this to have tangible results with new impeachment in Congress.
And we got some big names speaking. Who's speaking?
We've got Harry Dunn. We've got George Conway. I will be speaking. We've got Cameron Trimble, who was in the Biden White House. We have many others from our movement that have just been relentless fighters on the ground who we're going to give a voice to. So it's going to be...
So I heard a quick critique is, why are you doing it at the same time as No Kings?
After theirs, we're having kind of a staggered start. So 1 o'clock, we'll start to receive people that are coming from Virginia. And then 3 o'clock, we'll start to receive people that are coming from Anacostia. So it's kind of like a convergence in the middle of the day, towards the end of the day, of all of these rallies. I think bringing together these demands to that top line of this guy at the top, Donald Trump, and every lawless cabinet member. They've got to be impeached. They've got to be removed.
And it's about pressure, right? It's primary season, folks. It's 6 months left. If you do not put pressure on these Democrats, you're going to get the same results. Follow the money.
Yep.
Trust the evidence of your eyes and ears. Just listen to them. Don't listen to me and Jessica. Listen to them. Put the fear of God in them.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So if you're anywhere in DC, in Los Angeles, we have an anchor event. In Detroit, we have an anchor event. If you're anywhere in DC, please come see us on the mall. You can go to removetheregime.com. I decided to do this like literally a week and a half ago for sure. So we're in a very short timeline to raise the amount of money that we need to actually physically pay for the infrastructure. If you can support us, we need that, and we would love that. It's all at removetheregime.com.
Let's remove the regime. How about Removal Coalition?
Yeah, Removal Coalition is the umbrella. That's the organization that the Remove the Regime movement is under.
I just shared it. Jessica, final word to you, because I know you have to do what I did at 11 p.m. last night. Is it last night? I don't know. I came in here on a red eye. I'm barely awake. You have to take a flight and try to get back to D.C. Good luck. So as you're running to your plane, final word to you.
Final word, reclaim your agency, know your worth, have dignity. What is going on right now in this country and around the world is an insult to every single one of us, to every single one of our divine and individual rights. Take back your agency, claim the highest of what we, the people, deserve in this moment. And getting Donald Trump impeached and removed from office is just the beginning. These people belong in prison.
Thank you, Jessica. If you have to log off, quickly log off. I don't want to keep you. I'll finish up right here. This is Jessica Denson. She's the founder of the Removal Coalition. It's the umbrella group of Remove the Regime, which is going to be there on No Kings rally. And they want a demand of impeachment. You got Harry Dunn speaking, and you also have others such as Jessica, and also who's the guy who's running for office right now? George Conway. This is what happens when you don't sleep, folks.
It's okay. I get it.
She makes a compelling case that we need to have impeachment, and we need to pressure Democrats to do more, to fight. I'm all here for it. Without accountability, you're going to get the same results. Without accountability, you have literally this corrupt vulgarian in the White House yet again. Thank you all for watching. This is The Left Hook. Subscribe to my Substack. Subscribe to Jessica's Substack. Everything's free. There's no paywalls. If you miss this conversation, don't worry. It'll be up in a bit. Take care of yourselves. Be kind. Be informed. And please, oh please, don't be a fascist. Good luck, Jessica. Travel safely.
Thank you. Bye.